Hello and welcome to a Thursday, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. And I say a Thursday, but it's not any usual Thursday. It is one of the two best days in the entire year on the sports calendar. Today, the madness intensifies. Today, it is the round of 64 Thursday in the 2024 men's NCAA tournament. Today, everybody goes dancing, and we rejoice.
And also, we rejoice with this. You see this right here? See this, kids?
Oh.
This is a bracket. This is what you print out. This is what you use a Sharpie and a highlighter for. Not on your phone, not trying to keep track of things. You need a hard copy in front of you at all times because it's so much fun to cross out teams, to highlight teams, and hopefully have more highlighters on there than crossed out teams after day number one. It's fun to get it started today, and roughly around noon lunchtime, we're going to get it popping until about midnight tonight. Can't wait for it to get underway. Let's do it.
For all of you kids that are watching, listen to what Donnie right side just said. Print out your bracket, use a pen, put on your greatest handwriting that you can, and fill out how you think the now round of 64 is going to go in a field of 64 after the first four last night in Dayton, Ohio. We recap everything from a Wednesday night in the big dance before everybody gets underway in this round of 64 Thursday and Friday as we really start to pick up the chaos and the madness. So as we get going here in this opening hour of 3 live on the early line on SportsGrid up until 11 a.m. Eastern time, we give you all the news you need to know around the sports landscape. And before we do that, we welcome in our SportsGrid radio audience. Hour number 1 of TEL, Sirius XM, channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. He is Donnie right side. I am Ben Stevens. A complete bracket breakdown. We will go over all 16 games that we have on this Thursday round of 64 throughout these 3 hours on the show. But if you're Major League Baseball, how do you want to start off a new season? You go to Seoul, South Korea, you have a premier event, even if it's early stateside between the Dodgers and the Padres. What a dramatic comeback it was for LA in game number 1 down into the 8th inning. They played 4 in the 8th. Shohei Ohtani drives in an RBI. All celebration for what is expected to be the best team in baseball this year. And then a few hours after that, a very interesting story out of Los Angeles. The Dodgers firing Shohei Ohtani's longtime interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara, for what his representation, Ohtani's representation, was calling massive theft that was a little bit less than $5 million, all tied to illegal sports betting in the state of California. A very intriguing story with a very interesting timeline that does not necessarily add all the way up to a guy that had been by Shohei's side since he got to the bigs in 2018 and then all of a sudden just betrayed him out of nowhere.
Yeah, this story doesn't make any sense. But number one, hey, California, let's get it together here. Legalize sports gambling. Let's make it sooner than later. We don't have to keep this in the back rooms anymore. Let's get it popping out there. Number two, if anybody understands how actually credit works in the gambling business, even if you walk into a casino, they want to know how much money you make here. So let's just say the guy's making $300,000 a year, which is an unbelievable wage here, by the way, just to be an interpreter. Yeah. Shout out to that guy for actually getting that. But you're not going to get a line of credit of $5 million. And let's just say, Ben, this was over a couple years. I don't know what casino, what bookie, what legalized sports operation you might have that goes, you know what, you never have to pay. Keep racking that debt up. Oh, you're down $1 million? No big deal. Don't make any payments. You're down $2 million now? Don't make any payments. $3, $4, $4.5 million? Don't worry about the payments. And now they want them to stop the madness here. There is a rabbit hole we have to go down because nobody's buying the story that Ohtani's just a good friend and goes, you know what? Here's $4.5 million, and or this guy had access to a debit card that could punch out $4.5 million in one lump sum, and nobody is going to pay attention to that. I need to get to more of this. I need more information, Ben.
After the Seoul Series opening game, Ohtani's representation had set up an interview for Mizuhara with ESPN. He goes through the interview, details everything, takes full blame, and then Ohtani's representation cancels said interview or does not allow it to see the light of day. And then Mizuhara was let go and accused of massive theft. Oh, by the way, game number 2 of the Soul Series to open up 2024 in Major League Baseball, not going the way of the Dodgers. Bottom of the 5th, as LA is the home team today. The Dodgers trail the Padres 10-6. So we'll get more into Major League Baseball later on. But of course, on this ceremonious Thursday round of 64 start to the NCAA tournament, we look back on the final night of the first 4 in Dayton, Ohio. Virginia and Colorado State played a very low-scoring game that was tough to watch. Colorado and Boise State weren't much better, but the Buffs do win and advance into the round of 64 as the 10 seed in the South region. 60-53. Colorado wins and covers as a 3.5-point favorite. DRS, when we spoke yesterday, over-under for this matchup, 140.5. By the time we got to tip last night in Dayton, 144.5. It stayed well under despite the market movement.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because you had the higher-level teams that had ultra-low-scoring games over the past 2 days in Dayton. You had the teams that on the lower level, who had technically terrible offenses, really got after it. I thought Grambling and Montana State would stay under, but by the way, I did think Colorado would be able to beat Boise State in this arena, and they did that yesterday. Doesn't matter how pretty it is, Colorado's moving forward, and maybe a chance to get to the round of 32 as well.
We'll talk more about Colorado and what their outlooks look like in the big dance in just a moment, but DRS is correct. The 16 versus 16 seeds game that we saw in Dayton the last 2 nights were the better of them. Grambling, in its very first ever appearance in an NCAA tournament, rallies from down 14 in the second half to force overtime. And the Tigers, in their first game in tourney history, win their first game in NCAA tournament history, in the history of the program. The Tigers continue dancing with an 88-81 victory in overtime over Montana State.
Yeah, fantastic comeback all the way through. I did have a small money line wager on both Colorado and Montana State winning. It looked pretty good because I said to myself, I'm really comfortable with Colorado. Let's just take a flyer on Montana State. And it looked great halfway through that game, but an awesome comeback from Grambling. This is what we're going to watch here. And by the way, if you're laying points, be wary. Time to take the points and pray here. Let's get after it.
Take the points and pray into the big dance, and Grambling won outright as a 4.5-point underdog. Quickly in the NBA now, marquee matchup in the Eastern Conference. Despite no Giannis for Milwaukee, the Bucks did rally in the fourth quarter to make it interesting. They were down by 18 at the start of the fourth and final quarter, but the Celtics hold off the Bucks to win 122-119. The Bucks do cover, though, as a 7.5-point road underdog.
Yeah, we nailed that game. We told you to take the 10.5 points with Milwaukee. Looked a little bit shaky there, but they won it. But also the FanDuel Sportsbook. You had 3 3-point shots made for Lillard, 3 3-point shots made for Tatum. Cashed in an odds boost last night. So great all the way around in that game.
10.5-point spread, my apologies, but Milwaukee still covers the number. Boston now 32-3 straight up at home this year. On the road, Miami was booked as a 2-point dog in Cleveland. The Heat went outright behind Jimmy Butler, 107-104 against the Cavs. Domantas Sabonis records a triple-double and a big win for Sacramento. And why not? Caleb Williams throws it his pro day at USC, minus 5,000 to go first overall. More reaction to the big dance next.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the movie that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance.
That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like This
is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to
Penn
find
State's
a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But
Right.
if we make them a third,
They get in.
this
is
they're
the Penn
always
State
going to be
rule.
better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
The NC State game on Saturday against North Carolina that stood out most to me, that they not only went on a 5-day heater like they did in '83 when Valvano took them another 6 games and they won the national championship.
The committee didn't sit there at the beginning of the week and think that Oregon, New Mexico, NC State, Duquesne, they didn't sit there planning for all those teams to go and win.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live. Prime time.
Back-to-back just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live. Overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It is round of 64 Thursday in the 2024 men's NCAA tournament. One of the greatest days, if not the greatest day in the entirety of the year on the sports calendar, or really any calendar for what it is worth. We welcome you to this Thursday here on the early line on SportsGrid. Over these next 3 hours, we get you set with everything you need to know before the big dance truly gets underway today and the madness intensifies. We will look at all 16 matchups on this round of 64 Thursday and go through the madness as well. Paint those paths to a Final Four run in Phoenix, Arizona, and who we believe is cutting down the nets as a national champ. If you haven't filled out your brackets, you will have all the information you need here over these 3 hours to do so, and some best bets on the first day of the big dance in the round of 64. But we've already been dancing the last 2 nights in Dayton, Ohio. First 4 action on Tuesday. It was a dismal offensive effort out of Virginia. Colorado State wins by 25. They're the 10 seed in the Midwest region. We saw Wagner win its first ever NCAA tournament game in program history. And last night, we saw more of the same. Slow offensive outputs from the high major teams, or at least those bigger schools, and a really good game between the teams battling for their first ever victory in the big dance. We start with the nightcap, the final game of the first 4 in Dayton, Colorado versus Boise State. DRS, when this line opened up on Selection Sunday, it was a virtual pick'em between the Broncos and the Buffs. By the time we got the tip last night in Dayton, the line had worked in favor of Colorado, 3.5-point spread in favor of CU, and the line movement was correct. Colorado wins by 7 in a low-scoring affair, 60-53 over Boise State.
I thought it would happen. I thought Colorado was the better team overall, but also you're taking a look at handicaps, right? Because usually there's a home team and an away team. Technically, Ben, both of these teams are away teams here because it's not their gym. Sightlines are a little bit different. Nerves obviously playing in your first round of the tournament here, and that's what you got. Look at the first half. 26-24 lead from Colorado. They held on the second half, 34-29. Actually, Boise State made a nice charge against them with about 3 to 4 minutes to go, but Colorado was the better team, able to hold on. I told you yesterday, Colorado is one of the better three-point shooting teams in the country percentage-wise, and you might be able to lean on that and be a factor. They were 4 of 15 from three-point range, 26%. So quite frankly, if you were giving me, Ben, the handicap from yesterday, hey, Donnie, I know you like them to shoot three-point shots. They're going to shoot under 30%. I probably would have told you Boise State won that basketball game, but that's because Boise State went 2 of 18 from the three-point line for 11% as a team. And quite frankly, Boise State, that doesn't get to the free throw line a lot, they only had 6 free throw attempts yesterday, and they converted 5. Colorado was the better basketball team, but from a handicapping perspective, I didn't handicap it all that well, but sometimes better be lucky than good here. Colorado moves on.
DRS, a lot of people probably handicapping the game, looking at 2 very efficient offenses despite slow tempos and taking the over. When we spoke yesterday, around 10 a.m. Eastern time, the total was 140.5. By the time we got to tip in the nightcap in Dayton, it was up by 3 to 4 points in most spots, 144.5 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Obviously, it stayed well under 60 to 53. A disappointing effort out of Boise State. Their 3 best players, Tyson Dagenhart, who is a first-team All-Mountain West selection for a second consecutive year, Omar Stanley and Max Rice, probably their 3 leaders in that starting 5, combined for just 12 points in the entirety of the game. Colorado played really good defense under Tad Boyle, but when you look at the Broncos, DRS, 10 NCAA tournament games now in program history. They are 0 for 10. That is the most appearances in a big dance, the most games in a big dance without a single victory in the history of the men's NCAA tournament. Meanwhile, for CU, a team to pay attention to. Colorado rallied down the home stretch of this regular season as they got healthier. They won 8 straight in the Pac-12 tourney title, ultimately came up short against Oregon. Last night, a single-digit favorite. They've covered in their last 6 games as a single-digit favorite, and now the Buffaloes, DRS, will be that 10 seed in the South region. An intriguing round of 64 matchup tomorrow against Florida. The Gators also playing their best ball at this moment, also reaching their conference tournament title game, coming up short against Auburn in that SEC championship. But Florida plays with pace. Colorado will have to up the ante tomorrow offensively to hang with the Gators.
Yeah, they will have to do that. But also, sometimes you like this, and I bring this up quite a bit. You saw Colorado, who's an efficient team here, wasn't all that efficient, particularly from the three-point line. Sometimes you want to get those out of the way and still pick up a victory, because we know your regular season statistics should line up with what we're going to check out here in the tournament. You're just looking at averages, right? If you're an average shooting three-point shot team, you expect the average that night. If you're a very good three-point shooting team, you expect to be above average that night. Colorado was terrible from the three-point line. If that switches around against Florida, which there will be opportunities to score, that should help Colorado. Winning ugly sometimes helps that team propel, because you didn't expect to do that and you still won anyway. You can reach on that and draw down in the next game.
When you look at Colorado, their leader, KJ Simpson, a big night last night, but off to a slow start offensively. Just 6 of 18 from the floor, but 6 of 6 from the charity stripe, hitting clutch free throw after clutch free throw, 19 points, 11 boards. It was really Tristan da Silva who was the one bright spot offensively for Colorado, 20 points, 3 of 6 from deep. The Buffs now 39.1% from 3, 8th best in the country. Last night they entered with the 5th best three-point shooting percentage, 39.6%. So it wasn't their best night, but they can stack it up offensively. The Buffaloes now in a dead pick'em. It is minus 110 for Colorado, minus 110 for Florida in that 7-10 matchup in the South region, total at 159.5. I don't think Colorado has that slow of an offensive game once again. Now we get to the first matchup in the first 4 on a Wednesday evening, in what a game it was. Montana State into the NCAA tournament for a 3rd consecutive season, but looking for its first victory in the big dance. Grambling State into its first NCAA tournament ever, looking, of course, then for its first NCAA tournament victory. And it seemed like the Bobcats of Montana State would roll. They got out to a 14-point lead, under 15 minutes left in regulation, before Grambling turned on the Jets. They forced overtime and in OT, just looked like the more confident team. 88-81. Dante Jackson and his Tigers keep it rolling into the round of 64. First ever game in tournament history, first ever victory in NCAA tournament history for Grambling.
Yeah, take a look at 41 rebounds there as a team for Grambling to only 27 for Montana State. They controlled the boards here, but also for two teams that we thought might not be all that efficient coming in, particularly Grambling. Grambling shoots over 50% as a team from the floor, 40% from three-point range, and close to 80% from the free throw line. You take a look at things that are an anomaly, that's one of them. But all that we talk about here, Ben, is it's not 3 games, not 5 games, it's not 7.
Nope.
Just bring the heat in that one game. You can overtake just about anybody if you play well, and Grambling did that. And also, very easy to tuck your tails and run at that point, down double digits in the second half. Hey, it was a nice run. Let's enjoy it for what it was. But to come all the way back and force overtime, then win that overtime period, 16-9, and going way over the total in this game with Grambling, cashes in with 88 points. I didn't see that one coming.
Total 133.5. Again, it went well over, but was over in regulation for what it was worth as well. Grambling this year had the 4th hardest schedule in non-conference, according to Kenneth Pomeroy. They scheduled some of the big boys at the high major level, and the Tigers now again in non-conference play, the beneficiaries of it. Grambling this year, 8-11 against the spread as an underdog. That includes their non-conference slate as well. Jamil Kofer off the bench for Grambling, 19 points, was really that spark plug as the Tigers started their rally. So Grambling, as a reward, goes into the round of 64, where in Indianapolis, they will take on Purdue, the number 1 seed in the Midwest region. The Boilermakers, a 25.5-point favorite against Grambling, hoping that another 16 seed who won in the first 4 doesn't pull off what we saw a season ago.
Yeah, and exactly. It'd be a worst-case scenario, because if you get knocked off in the round of 32 or the Sweet 16, it's probably against a quality opponent. If Grambling comes and takes down Purdue, the headlines are going to be sweet there for Purdue, baby.
You got to just cut down the basketball program in West Lafayette. Around the association we go next.
When it comes to betting on sports, injuries matter, and Sports Injury Central has you covered all year long with expert injury analysis and injury-based picks for the NFL, NBA, and MLB. Our former pro sports doctors have unmatched experience to analyze every injury so you know the impact of the player, team, and their upcoming matchup. Whether it's articles, podcasts, player insights, or our patented injury scores, Sports Injury Central will help you keep up with your fantasy team and make more informed wagers. So make sure you follow Sports Injury Central and gain an edge at sixscore.com.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the movie that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance. That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on sport.
Live right here on this Thursday on the early line. Basketball is our focus. Again, for the rest of these 3 hours, it will be round of 64 handicap after handicap to get you ready for the best day on the sports calendar in the men's NCAA tournament. But before we get into college hoops, we go back to the association last night. Marquee matchup in the Eastern Conference between the two top teams of the standings right now. But there is a very large gap between those top two. An 11-game advantage now for the Celtics for that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. It wasn't easy down the stretch, but the C's do win at home for the 32nd time in 35 games this year. Boston over Milwaukee, 122-119. No Giannis Antetokounmpo for the Bucks. They were down by 18 entering the fourth and final quarter. They rally at the end behind 32 points from Damian Lillard. Milwaukee does cover as a 10.5-point underdog, but the Celtics have now won 7 straight, adding on to yet another win streak.
Yeah, Lillard started out real slow in that basketball game yesterday, too. So it was like, oh, no, is it going to be one of those blowout games where he doesn't even need to play like in the late third quarter? Wasn't the case, as he finished 11 of 21 from the field, which included 6 of 10 from three-point range for that 32 points that you brought up here. It was a good performance overall because the handicap yesterday was we thought the Celtics would win the game. But again, getting double digits here and how effective Boston was going to be, we would have found out. Because last time we saw the Milwaukee Bucks without Giannis Antetokounmpo, they played fairly well. Why? Because Damian Lillard was good. So that was the banking yesterday. Even as I was breaking it down, Ben, saying, look, if you don't want to take the Milwaukee Bucks with the 10.5 points, just take Damian Lillard. You know he's going to have an honest effort, and he did, scoring over 30 points in that game. He even hit that late three-point shot to get it down from 6-3, which, again, was basically the game over as Tatum just flipped the ball up in the air as the horn sounded. But I think we nailed that one yesterday, taking the points with the Bucks, getting a good effort, but the Celtics still winning that game, and Damian Lillard to have a good game. That was a pretty good handicap all the way around for us.
It was going to be a very tough climb for Milwaukee, indicated in that point spread. To beat Boston outright inside TD Garden has only happened 3 times in 35 games. The Celtics have been booked as a home favorite in all 35 this year in Beantown, now 20-15 against the spread. The Bucks were not a good underdog team, but they have started to cover more and more as an underdog, at least here since the All-Star break. 9-4 straight up in their overall record since that All-Star break in Indianapolis. 5-7 now against the spread as an underdog. Had only 2 covers, did Milwaukee, in the opening half of this 2023-24 NBA campaign. But again, despite that being a matchup, Donnie, of the 1 versus 2 in the Eastern Conference, the 2 teams with the shortest prices to win the Eastern Conference, there is a separation. There is a distinction right now between Boston and everybody else in the East. 55-14, the record for the Celtics. Nobody else in the NBA has reached the 50-win benchmark, and Boston's got 55. And you see that price to win an Eastern Conference crown, minus 140. Already heftily into minus money before even the end of the regular season. Not that it really was ever in doubt, but the Celtics, with the win last night, do clinch their division.
Yeah, priced out of the market right now. You shouldn't be taking the Celtics on any future wagers at this point right now at those low numbers because, again, if it was 10-1 or 15-1, absolutely. But we know how it plays out. One key injury can derail your entire season. And if you're looking at that plus 220 price to win an NBA championship, which means they have to get all the way through the East and then face, let's just say, the Denver Nuggets in the finals, that's a ridiculously low price right now, and I wouldn't be touching it. However, saying that in the Eastern Conference now, just look at that matchup from last night. We know Giannis did not play. The Boston Celtics Celtics improved to 32-3 on their home court. It feels like those Larry Bird days in the 1980s where nobody could beat them at the Boston Garden. But on the flip side, you take a look at Milwaukee. Solid record of 44-25, Ben. But look at that away number, 17-18. Man, Boston is so good as a team and so good at home. It's just going to be really tough to knock them off because that theory again goes, Boston doesn't even have to win a game on the road probably throughout the Eastern Conference, and they still make the finals because they're not losing on their home court.
And as of right now, they would have home floor advantage in the NBA Finals because they have 7 more wins than anybody else in the NBA. That includes the top teams in the Western Conference like OKC and Denver. If you look at the odds for the Eastern Conference Championship right now, it's already what the series price would probably be. The Celtics minus 140, Milwaukee plus 280. Those numbers would get a little bit closer in terms of if it was just those two teams remaining, of course. But after Milwaukee, the Knicks have the third best number at 11-1. The Cavaliers, who currently sit in third in the standings, have the fourth best price at 12-1. Cleveland trying to hold on to that third place spot in the Eastern Conference, as even as a 2-point home favorite last night, market work in the way of the Cavaliers. Miami goes on the road to the Land and wins outright 107-104. Again, the Heat booked as a 2-point road underdog, a total that was very minimal. 206.5 doesn't sky over, but does go over last night in Cleveland.
I'll tell you, like lining this game up yesterday, and as we were saying, the handicap for me was very simple. If Jimmy Butler plays, I'm going to take the Miami Heat because I know you're going to be missing Donovan Mitchell over on Cleveland's side. Having said that, looking at the final box score and the starting lineup for the Heat last night, Jovic, Butler, Bryant, Mills, and Rozier, and they went on the road and got a victory here. So, yes, in theory, Jimmy Butler did play, but I expected maybe a little bit more of a supporting cast to help him on the road, but didn't need that last night. 30 points out of Butler, 24 out of Rozier. That's sort of that zombie Heat lineup minus a couple superstars and still gets the job done yesterday. That's pretty impressive. So I didn't expect that to happen again. Better to be lucky than good sometimes. So yes, Jimmy Butler did play and they did win, but that doesn't tell the whole story there. But we got a W out of it.
Game high 30 points for Jimmy Butler. If he's going to play his best basketball, this is the right time to do so. But he's dealt with a couple of nagging injuries here as of late. Miami truly hasn't been healthy. Bam Adebayo out last night. Tyler Hero has missed some time here down the stretch. Same story for Cleveland. No Donovan Mitchell, no Evan Mobley. Jared Allen had 25 in 20, 25 points and 20 boards, but Cleveland ultimately comes up short, even booked as a 2-point home favorite. Again, a small total last night, an over-under of just 206.5. That does go over. The Heat still under in 14 of its last 18 games, something to pay attention to. A couple of lines that did make sense last night, DRS, like what we saw out in Phoenix. The Suns closed as a 9-point favorite against the shorthanded Philadelphia 76ers. The Suns finally need to start stacking up some victories. It has not been an easy slate for Phoenix by any stretch in this home stretch since the All-Star break, but the line was correct last night in the Valley. The Suns knock off the Sixers by 13, 115-102. Phoenix covers as a 9-point home favorite.
Yeah, and the Sixers even scored 36 points in the fourth quarter and won that quarter by 11 points and still didn't even come away with the cover there as you see the 13-point win. The handicap yesterday for me was the Philadelphia 76ers don't have much gas in the tank right now. They're leaning on, hey, Maxey, if you can give us 35 a night, we might be able to hang around. You know what Maxey did last night? 29 minutes, 3 of 13 from the floor, 0 of 4 from the three-point line, and didn't even get to the free throw line, only scoring 6 total points. So you knew it was going to be in the bag. But when you take a look at Phoenix, what were we saying, Ben? Hey, let's get the big three out on the court, which they were there. Durant gave you 22, Booker gave you 18, and Beal gave you 3. If you would have told me that, I'd say, you know what? The Philadelphia 76ers might be in this game, but here's Grayson Allen, the new big three, 9 of 15 from the three-point line for 32 points here. But the handicap yesterday was there's no way Phoenix should not win this game by double digits, and they did, got the winning cover. So the two NBA guys here on the network, it's the early line. We're nailing all of these people.
The two premier NBA handicappers that you could ever hope to have. But DRS, you made the point, the new big three, we might have to recorrelate what the actual big three is in Phoenix, not just because of availability, but when even they're out there, Grayson Allen continues to go off. Now a sharp shooter, 9 threes last night, a game-high 32 points. The Sixers had 4 guys off the bench score in double figures. Only Tyrese Maxey with 18 was the guy to score in double figures in the starting lineup. Philly, by the way, now an underdog in 14 of their last 21 games. They're both 5-9 straight up and against the spread. Phoenix entered last night third worst cover team in the association. Only the Hornets and the Hawks worse at covering numbers. Now 27-40-2 for the Suns against the number. Golden State, an 11.5-point favorite at home last night over the Memphis Grizzlies, and another number that was proven to be correct. Golden State wins by 21, 137-116 over a Grizz team that does not have Ja Morant, that does not have many of the pieces it expected to this year. They've been covering numbers. They entered last night covering in 3 of their last 4, not in San Francisco. Golden State wins big, 21 points.
Yeah, pull the tapes from yesterday, man, saying, hey, Golden State, what do you think they can do? They're laying double digits. I thought they would smash the Grizzlies, and they did by 21 points here. And also keep in mind, you take a look at some of these box scores. Like Steph Curry had 14 points in this game, and they still scored 137.
Yeah.
The one thing that we do know heading down the stretch, which is a synonym for all of sports here, Ben, you take a look at teams that don't care about winning basketball games versus teams that absolutely need to win basketball games, and that's going to play out down the stretch. The Grizzlies don't care if they won that game.
Yeah.
They're looking for the lottery and the ping pong balls all the way out that long travel to Golden State. They got hammered, and rightfully so. We thought they would win by double digits, and they did easily yesterday. So good win for the Golden State Warriors.
One of the bright spots for Memphis, G.G. Jackson, a very interesting college career, was the top overall recruit, supposed to go to North Carolina, reclassified, played 1 year at South Carolina, still very young, but 35 points last night to lead all scorers. He hit 7 triples. When you go to Golden State's side, Steph, for a 5th consecutive season, reaches 300 threes, but it was Jonathan Kuminga. 12 of 17 in that starting lineup, 26 points. And then you had the Dubs off the bench with Klay Thompson, Chris Paul, and Trace Jackson-Davis. They all combined for 48 bench points. A big victory for Golden State. Again, they cover as an 11.5-point home favorite. Quickly, let's look at the Western Conference standings. Sacramento in that 6th spot, out of the play-in tournament. Half-game advantage over the Dallas Mavericks. The Suns right there as well. The Lakers and the Dubs pretty firmly in that 9-10 split. Round of 64. Previews, picks, and breakdowns up next.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the movie that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance. That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This is
a guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to
Penn
find
State's
a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But
Right.
if we make them a third,
They get in.
This
is
they're
the Penn
always
State
going to be
rule.
better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that lightning in a bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
The NC State game on Saturday against North Carolina that stood out most to me, that they not only went on a 5-day heater like they did in '83 when Valvano took them another 6 games and they won the national championship.
The committee didn't sit there at the beginning of the week and think that Oregon, New Mexico, NC State, Duquesne, they didn't sit there planning for all those teams to go and win.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live. Prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live. Overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It is the best day in the sports calendar in my estimation. It is the round of 64 Thursday at the 2024 Men's NCAA Tournament. 16 games on this Thursday, starting at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. The final one out in Omaha tips at 10:05 p.m. Eastern Time. We have 12 straight hours of the most significant basketball that you will see here in this month of March in the Big Dance. DRS, this is why we do what we do. This is why even when you say it's silly season, in non-conference tournaments at the end of November, we wait for a day like this. Even when conference action starts to pick up the intensity into early January, into February, we wait for days like this. And this day is now here. Welcome to the round of 64 at the 2024 Big Dance.
Yeah, and also it shows that time does move here, and it seems like things are so far away. How many times do we have John Rothstein on the show? It's like, hey guys, we're 52 days away from Selection Sunday. We're 2 months away. We're a month and a half away. They eventually get here because we usually mark our timestamps like, hey, the start of a new season. Like right now, we'll tell each other the NFL season week 1, it's never going to get here. We're 5 months away. We're 4 months away. It eventually gets here, but today is one of those days we love to celebrate, even though we get the appetizers, Ben, right on Tuesday and Wednesday, just to see what the tournament sort of feels like. But today is the official start, that / unofficial start to March Madness, where once you know, and everybody's been growing up here, you go to high school, grade school here, everybody's got a bracket, and all you're doing is looking at the clock going, okay, it's about lunchtime, it's 12 o'clock, these games are underway, I can't wait to get home and watch these things play out all the way into the night. So everybody, little to small, old, handicappers, non-handicappers, everybody is involved in March Madness, and we all get to partake today.
In some high school, I had built up some good rapport with some of my teachers, and I would try to get them to wheel out the TV so we could put on the games, no sound on, just in the background. I'd say it worked about 1 of every 5 times, but it was certainly worth the try. Now you have your bracket printed out. It needs to be filled out by noon Eastern Time. I hope you have done so in pen. But it's not just your bracket. That could go up in smoke even early on here on this round of 64 Thursday. It is the best bets each and every day throughout the Big Dance. We will continue to paint the path in the big picture of it all. But now we handicap all 16 games over these next 2.5 hours live right here on the early line up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So we start with the very first game of the 2024 Men's NCAA Tournament in the round of 64. It's Michigan State, who has now been to the Big Dance for 26 consecutive seasons, all under Tom Izzo, and Mississippi State on the other side. It's the 8-9 matchup in the East, or the West region, rather. The Spartans now a 1.5-point favorite, but very close on that money line, as you can see, working to MSU, that being Michigan State just a little bit, at a -122 number. Two really good defensive teams, Donnie. The pace expected to be slow to start action in the West region. That total, 130.5.
Saban effect, I call this game, right? Because it's Michigan State, and obviously when you have a great head coach like Tom Izzo, he has a couple extra days to prepare for your basketball team. And keep in mind, these two teams aren't from the Big Ten or from the SEC where they know each other hands down. There's going to be some time to get used to it. But you know what I like about Michigan State? Even if I don't love their brand of basketball, the times I would worry about Michigan State are the other team is ultra athletic, Ben. They want to push tempo. They want to jack threes up. They want to take you out of your element. It seems like both of these teams really cut from the same cloth, which I give the advantage to Michigan State. If I'm going to take a look at two basketball teams that want to play great defense, Michigan State 9th overall in efficiency in the country, Mississippi State 18th overall, you know you're going to get that honest effort and every single possession is going to matter. So you take a look at some teams that rely on the three-point shot. Michigan State doesn't at all, Ben. 326th in the nation at firing three-point shots, which is one of those elements I love to look at. So if their point distribution is in the top 25 inside the arc in a game that everybody's going to play great defense, the one thing I know is Michigan State is not going to shoot 33-point shots and only make 5 of them. They're going to look to get to the rim here and see if they can make it pay off in that essence. But if I'm looking both sides here, I like Michigan State. Give me Tom Izzo. Give me Tom Izzo. Give me Tom Izzo. How about that?
I love it, DRS. And when you look at it for MSU this year, 57% of their scoring comes from inside the three-point line. What Mississippi State wants to do on the defensive side of the floor under Chris Jans is defend you at all costs. As far out to the perimeter as you will go, Sparty will say, okay, we're not really going to hoist many from here. And it's been an interesting year for Michigan State. I was very optimistic about this year's team with all the returning talent they had, and then 3 McDonald's All-Americans coming in this season to East Lansing as well. It hasn't panned out. You remember the Spartans were the 4th team in the AP poll in the preseason, then lost on the opening night of their year at home inside the Breslin Center to James Madison. Where Michigan State, though, has struggled is down low, with consistent play out of their bigs. And on the other side for the Bulldogs, one of the best in the SEC in Tolu Smith. In my opinion, that is the matchup that will dictate this game. I will also say this, as you will hear a common handicapping phrase, total 130.5. The over actually a bit more juice than the under. But that first half number, DRS, 60 and a hook. First game of the big dance. 2 slow-paced teams that focus a lot on the defensive side of the football. I think there will be many out there today with a first-half under of 60 and a hook between the Spartans and the Bulldogs.
By the way, taking a look at this game also, you're trying to find things in irregularities that you think are going to make a lot of sense. If you think both of these teams are going to play great defense, how about Mississippi State on offense? 290th in the country at turning the basketball over. You flip it over to Michigan State, they protect the basketball. Top 50 in the country at not turning it over. Some of those things go a long way, which includes if we expect a close game. Michigan State only favored by 1.5 points. Look at the free throw shooting. 324th in the country for Mississippi State. Those 1-and-1s at the end of the ball game, if you're trying to salt it away for Mississippi State, they might be hard to come by here. So a lot of things to like in this game. It's going to be extremely close, but I trust Michigan State a little bit more than I do Mississippi State here.
Just a 62% free throw shooting team. Again, not good, but Chris Jans in his 2 years in Starkville has led Mississippi State to the NCAA tournament in each season. That is the first game up, the second game that will tip around 12:40 p.m. Eastern time. That's the 6th seed in the East region, BYU, who is underseeded based on logistics against the 11th seed in that portion of the bracket, Duquesne. The Dukes got super hot at the end of the year, running through the A-10 tournament and a victory to earn that automatic berth, stealing one of those bids. But the Cougars here, DRS, BYU, a 9.5-point favorite. That over-under, 142.5.
Yeah, it should be a fun game to watch, and BYU is one of those teams I enjoy watching because they're going to push some tempo, and they're going to fire a ton of three-point shots. They don't care about getting to the rim, and quite frankly, even getting to the free throw line. How about this? Getting to the free throw line per field goal attempts, 349th in the country, which means BYU is going to rely on the three-point shot. They're going to live there. They're going to die there. They should be able to overpower Duquesne in this game, but when we're taking a look at style components, they are number 2 in the country at firing from behind the three-point range, and also a decent decent shooting percentage as a team at 35%. You give me average BYU. Let's just say at the end of the game, Ben, we look at the box score and BYU shot 35% from three. They should win this game handily here. But also keep in mind, they don't really care about the 2-point shot, Ben, but I always find this interesting. If it is available, they will make it. Top 10 in the country inside the arc, which means if they get a look inside the arc, they bury it as well.
They have a 58% field goal percentage from inside the arc. It's just they take nearly 51% of their shots from beyond the arc. Again, that is the second highest three-point attempt percentage in all of college basketball, the 11th most efficient offense. BYU this year, 20-13 against the number as a favorite. They enter having gone over in 3 of their last 5 games. Duquesne, meanwhile, again, running through the A-10, playing their best basketball at the most significant time. The Dukes have won 8 straight games. They have covered in 7 of the 8. They have gone under in 7 of their last 8. I will say this. The Dukes have played 24 games in the calendar year 2024. Duquesne's gone under in 19 of 24. One last dance in the big dance, by the way, for Duquesne's head coach, Keith Dambrot. You might have heard some stories about him over the weekend. He coached LeBron James back in Akron. He was the longtime head coach at Akron, but his father played college hoops at Duquesne, and he wanted to honor his father's legacy by becoming their head coach. He announced his retirement earlier this week following Duquesne's trip in the NCAA tournament. Now one of the best games of the day, the 5-12 matchup in the Midwest region, a game DRS that many will circle the 12 as a likely upset spot. That's McNeese against Gonzaga. The Zags lay in 6.5 points. The over-under, 149 and a hook. The over has the juice in this matchup. McNeese, a 30-win basketball team against a Gonzaga team that has appeared in the big dance 25 straight years. They've at least reached the second weekend in 8 straight trips to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, McNeese is high up on the list of some of those teams that can do damage because they won a lot of college basketball games this year. But let's also be honest. Gonzaga overall is a better team. Now, having said that, I think Gonzaga is going to advance, but I'm not willing to bet Gonzaga, let's just say 5.5 to 6.5 on that line. I do think it's going to be a close game. And when we talk about styles make fights, this is such an intriguing matchup from Gonzaga on offense to McNeese State on defense. Efficiency, Gonzaga is in the top 10. Feels like they're there every single year. Also, you take a look at this. Here's a key component. McNeese State gets a lot of their points on breakout plays. 23% of the time, Ben, they're turning the other team over, which is basically one trip out of every 4 up the court. You don't need to get a shot off. But here's where it could turn over because you take a look at the offensive efficiency for Gonzaga, which is great because why? They don't turn the basketball over. Top 16 in the country at not doing so. So if you're looking for those quick run-out points for McNeese State, it's probably not going to come today. But also, how about this? You want to shoot 3-point shots? McNeese State would love you to do that. However, Gonzaga, 311th in the country at volume from 3-point range. What you would have loved to see is BYU taking on McNeese State because they would have just bombed away and probably didn't even take a shot inside the arc. But also, take a look at the point distribution. Very stingy. McNeese State is, look at this, 361st in the country at allowing you to score at the hoop, and that's exactly what Gonzaga wants to do. They're top 10 in point distribution at getting to the rim. Something has to give here. I'm relying on Mark Few and that experience of being to the tournament every single year. I think wins out today, but I'm not willing to take Gonzaga with the minus points, but I do think they advance here, Ben.
You may have a great point about Will Wade's Cowboys. They make it incredibly difficult to facilitate the offense the way that you want, and that will make it very difficult to score. So, can McNeese pull off the upset outright? The 12 versus the 5 has happened 35% of the times in those individual matchups since the field expanded in 1985. I don't know if McNeese wins outright. I do believe in Gonzaga. I believe in the talent this roster has and their NCAA tournament pedigree, but I certainly would not lay 6.5. In fact, I would look at McNeese probably keeping the game tight in covering that margin. In fact, McNeese has not been an underdog DRS because they ran through the Southland since the end of December. That final game as a dog, they beat Michigan, who had a terrible season, but still Michigan outright. They also have 2 more quality wins over UAB, a tournament team, and over VCU outright as a dog. Many people expected the Rams to win the A-10. McNeese this year as a dog, 4-1 against the spread, 3 outright victories. Plenty more around the round of 64 coming your way. We'll go through every game, all 16. 3 down in the books, 13 more to go on this round of 64 Thursday to tip off the men's NCAA tournament in 2024. But next we go to Seoul, South Korea for an update on game number 2 of the 2024 MLB season between the Dodgers and the Padres. You bet we will. Up next.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the movie that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance. That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This
is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need
This
to
Penn
find
State's
a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But
Right.
if we make them a third,
They get in.
This
is
they're
the Penn
always
State
gonna
rule.
be better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that lightning in a bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
The NC State game on Saturday against North Carolina that stood out most to me, that they not only went on a 5-day heater like they did in '83 when Valvano took them another 6 games and they won the national championship.
The committee didn't sit there at the beginning of the week and think that Oregon, New Mexico, NC State, Duquesne, they didn't sit there planning for all those teams to go and win.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats and fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live. Prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live. Overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Game number 2 of the 2024 Major League Baseball season on the second day of opening morning in the opening series in Seoul, South Korea. The Dodgers rallied yesterday in the first game of the MLB campaign. Exactly a week from today, it's true opening day around baseball in the bigs. And right now, the Dodgers are going to need another 8th inning rally. Bottom of the 7th at this current moment. Los Angeles trails San Diego by a score of 12-8. Live on that money line, LA is getting 3.5 runs at plus 122. They would need another to cover that live number. Plus 1340 live on that money line as well. San Diego, much like yesterday, entered as an underdog behind Joe Musgrove. It was Yoshinobu Yamamoto's debut in a Dodgers uniform today in Seoul.
12-8 here is that score, which is 20 total runs. You take a look at 27 total hits, 3 errors by the Dodgers here. But once again, like a charm, Ohtani, an RBI this morning, which yesterday was plus 100. Today was plus 125. Took it again. He got that RBI early, but a lot of offense here. I know we can't extrapolate, Ben, like to the rest of the regular season, but we're getting some offensive surges here. And maybe Major League Baseball, do we have the humidor over there? I don't know if we don't, but we're getting some pretty good runs scoring. Almost had the total late yesterday. This total cashes easily right off of the bat. It's fun to watch you play out, but it's never over with the Dodgers. That's a talented lineup.
8.5 was that pregame total for the game overall. San Diego over by themselves, almost got halfway there in the first inning. Not a great debut out of Yamamoto. Only 1 inning of work, 43 pitches, 4 hits, 5 earned runs. Mookie Betts has awoken the bat today, 3 for 4 with a homer and 4 RBIs. You think Shohei Ohtani is watching the show? Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see how this all plays out. A lot of focus on Ohtani, DRS, in the last 24 hours.
Certainly has been, and it's also to say, like, something is in the back of his mind, thinking about what's going on off the field, but still producing on the field. That's a true superstar. Don't worry about the off-field issues. Just get RBIs, baby.
Hour 2 starts in less than a minute here on the Early Line.